the May 20th meeting of the Johnston County Board of Commissioners to order. Welcome those of you who are in person in the audience. It's good to see each of you, and also to those who are watching on our YouTube channel. Welcome to you, and also welcome to those who will be watching it at some point in the future. Just wanted to remind everyone of the board's 6 priorities that we established a few years ago and confirmed them again this year. They are educational funding, infrastructure, financial stewardship, land use, public safety, and finally, probably the most critical to make all that happen is our county employees. With that, we will follow with tradition. We will open with the invocation, and I've asked Commissioner Stevens to lead us in the invocation, and then we'll follow that with the pledge, and I've asked Commissioner Godwin to lead us in that. So if you would, if you so choose, please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the pledge.
Dear Heavenly Father, we gather today with grateful hearts, seeking your guidance and wisdom. Bless this meeting with your presence and help us to make decisions that reflect integrity, fairness, and compassion. Grant us the clarity to serve our community effectively, addressing the needs and concerns of our citizens. May our discussions be productive and our actions just, working always towards the common good. In your holy name we pray, amen.
Amen. Amen.
As we face the flag, I'll remind you that our veteran service organizations will have a Memorial Day service here at the courthouse, 11 o'clock on the 27th, I think, Memorial Day. Please join me in the pledge and salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. The first item on the agenda is actually approval of the agenda. Is there any need to discuss the agenda, or do I hear a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approval of the agenda, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The agenda is approved. The next item is the consent agenda. We have 8 items this month, or this meeting. They are approval of the April 15th meeting, additions to the DOT system. We also have appointments to continue to develop the framework of voluntary ag districts and Johnston County Voluntary Ag Advisory Board. Department of Social Services request the board's approval, enter in a lease agreement for additional office space. We also have the Finance Department with a reimbursement resolution for public school facility project expenditures, public utilities, 4 Oaks wastewater pump station improvements, Economic Development Advisory Board appointment for micro, and we have 2 budget revisions, one for finance and one for the airport. Is there any need to withdraw any of those items for further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, as those bigger items have been discussed in detail before this, I move that it be approved as presented.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approval of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved. So that brings us to public comments, and I'm going to look out and see if there's any member who wants to make a public comment, or anybody in attendance who wants to make a public comment before I read the epistle there. I see no one coming forward, and Madam Clerk, no emails to read. All right, then we will move on to the next item, which is partnership for children, Johnston County, proclamation for Summer Learning Week. And Mr. Mercer, you're coming forward on that. And I've asked Commissioner Harris to read the proclamation for us.
Right. Do you do that first, or?
No, we'll let you speak, and then we'll do it.
Well, hello, Board Chair Lauder and Commissioners. It's good to be here. It's an honor to be here in support of the proclamation declaring July 15th through 19th to be Summer Learning Week. It's also great to be representing Read to Grow Johnston County and the Partnership for Children of Johnston County. We emphasize the importance of enabling all of our children across the county to have meaningful reading and literacy opportunities all year long, including in the summer. so that they'll be ready to succeed in school in the years ahead. We know how important early literacy is. All the research tells us how important it is. It sets kids up for success later in their academic careers and in life. Our work with Read to Grow JoCo, it's based on the simple idea that summer's full of possibility, and it's an instrumental time for helping to close the achievement gap between more affluent kids and kids with fewer resources available to them. Hence, the work of Read to Grow's, Summer Learning Committee and our activities. It's really important, as you know, to provide these activities all year long and during summer. The backdrop, I think, here is, our school district obviously is facing some budget challenges and trying to meet the demand of pre-K for all our kids across the county, and that's proving to be a struggle and will be a struggle probably in the school year ahead. This summer, Read to Grow JoCo is proud to be sponsoring once again the Pause for Reading events, and I learned that Chair Lauder is going to be one of our celebrity readers. That's great. Last
I don't know
year,
about celebrity. I'm gonna be a
I
reader.
think that's
How
what we're
about
calling
that?
you. So thank you for doing that. Last year we reached about 250 or so children across several events all across the county. We'll do it again this year at libraries, community centers, parks. We even go out. We partnered, and I think we intend to do it again. We partner with First Baptist Church out of Smithfield when they deliver meals to people in the community. Also go out and meet up with kids and offer them a chance to adopt a reading partner, a reading pet, and get some free books as well. The Pause for Reading, the centerpiece of it is giving kids those little furry pets, the reading buddies we call them, and they sign a pledge to read to their reading buddies at least 20 minutes a day throughout the summer and beyond. That's been highly successful, and it's a great early literacy activity for us. So we're just really grateful for all the support you show Read to Grow and the summer learning initiatives and the partnership year-long. We look forward to continuing to work with you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. The proclamation for Summer Learning Week. Whereas Summer Learning Week is a time to reflect on the importance of keeping youth learning safe and healthy every summer, ensuring they return to school in the fall ready to succeed for the year ahead. And whereas summer learning loss is a significant contributor to the achievement gap, a gap that remains constant during the 9 months of the school year but widens during the summer months. And whereas summer learning programs are proven to maintain and advance students' academic and social growth, keep children safe, healthy during the summer, and send young people back to school ready to learn. Additionally, summer youth employment programs engage older youth in meaningful activities that allow them to explore careers of interest and take on new responsibilities, contribute to their community, and earn money for the future. And whereas a wide array of public agencies, community-based organizations, schools, libraries, museums, recreation centers, camps, and businesses in our community contribute to the well-being of the youth through the summer program, and whereas summer learning is a critical component of our collective effort to ensure all students graduate from high school and prepared for college and careers and life. Now therefore be it resolved that the Johnston County Board of Commissioners hereby proclaims July 15th through the 19th, 2024 as Summer Learning Week in Johnston County and commends this observance to all our citizens. Adopted this 20th day of May, 2024. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the proclamation.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I would just add to it, I know we're talking about reading here, but also attendance and the emphasis that you put on attendance and the difference that it doesn't surprisingly make when children get to school, they can learn more, and the difference that made, and thanks to the partnership for that effort as well. So any other comments? All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adopting the proclamation, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. The proclamation is adopted. Thank you. All right, next up, and I will say, the next three items are, we talk about our priorities. We have financial stewardship, which I think you'll see sprinkled amongst all of these, and then also our land use that we've talked about, and particularly the second and third item that are coming up with open space and farmland preservation. So with that, I will ask Kyle L. to come forward with Davenport and Company to give us an update on our county finances. I'll maybe get the other three letters in there at some point for you, Kyle.
Mr. Chair, it's always nice to see you and the board. Good evening, and hope everybody is well. So we have up on the screen a presentation that you've got the exact same thing in hard copy, and we'll walk through that. We've called this a capital planning analysis. Thank you. And/or maybe a financial update. It's really a follow-on to what we talked about in the board's workshop back in the kind of late wintertime period. And given that you're nearing budget deliberations, budget completion, thinking about capital projects and a potential referendum, we wanted to come and were asked to come and give you an update and a briefing on a couple of those topics. And so, to that end, just a little bit of background here. I'll try not to go word by word here, but I think big picture, the county is in very, very good financial shape. And so that's the byproduct of a lot of years of conservative financial management, sticking to your financial policies, and doing really, really good multi-year financial planning. And so that has earned you as a county AAA credit ratings. Those are the highest that you can have in terms of really any credit rating. The county has the top tier at those AAA range. You started roughly 25, 30 years ago in the A range, which at the time was very solid, but clearly there is a benefit to being AAA in that it is going to garner, when the need arises, to go finance projects the lowest possible interest rates. We've got a couple statistics up here. I won't read them word for word, but long story short, maintaining those AAA ratings is a money saver for the taxpayer. It helps you do things more efficiently and gives you lots of options when it comes time at the board's discretion to move forward with capital projects. Second page here, again, just a little bit of background. In November of 22, your most recently adopted referendum of about $177 million was completed. Just last year, the first portion of borrowing under that referendum, about $30 million, was completed at very, very favorable interest rates. So as we work over the next couple pages, we'll do some projections going forward to give you a range and an order of magnitude of what some of those debt-related policies that have served you so well might look like and could look like to the extent that you move forward with the balance of the already approved referendum plus the potential for, at the board's discretion, a new referendum. So you see at the bottom of the page, the underlying assumptions are that we as a county would borrow sometime in the fiscal year 2025 time period, probably early next calendar year, about $90 million for the existing referendum. That'd be followed up about a year later with about $57 million. Again, that would complete the existing referendum. So we've got that all, quote unquote, baked in the cake. That then gets to the bottom of the page, and one of the topics for this evening, to the extent the county would want to move forward with a referendum, we've used a planning range, if you will, between 200 and 260 million. That ultimate amount is obviously up to the board's discretion. We just wanted to give you a range and a flavor for what that would look like on those important debt-related policies, to the extent that is the will of the board. And so we've done that in terms of the capital planning analysis here on page number 3. And we'll show you this on the next couple of pages, really focusing on, for this presentation, we've got 3 very important debt policies. We've got our debt service to expenditures, which is in item number 2 there, our debt to assessed value or debt to market value, which is item number 1, and then our payout ratio. What those 3 policies do in tandem is demonstrate to the board, demonstrate to the LGC, to the credit markets, that as you take on new bond issues for capital projects, you're doing so in a responsible way, in a way that we're able to demonstrate to the rating agencies that will continue to be a AAA local government. So that's really what those are doing, belt and suspenders of planning. Before we layer on new things, we'll just give you a little snapshot here in terms of the county's existing outstanding debt. What you see there in terms of the left-hand graph is a nice downward ski slope. So Johnston County pays off its debt quickly. What that allows you to do is free up capacity to take on new projects, again, at the board's discretion, without having to, or maybe minimizing the impact to the budget. So that's been a long-term plan and strategy that's worked well for you, and you just visually see that in the top left graph. More numerically, that's demonstrated. There's a little kind of yellow box there around what's called the payout ratio. You see that right now is about 71%, technically 70.9 on the page there. What that's telling us is we're paying off 71% of the principal of the existing county debt within the next 10 years. If you maybe take a personal finance corollary, if you've ever had maybe a 30-year residential mortgage, the principal component of that mortgage in most residential senses, you pay off maybe 20 or 25% in the first decade of that loan. The county is paying off its debt much, much more rapidly. That's helping to free up capacity to take on future projects. One last point, all this debt is fixed rate. It's been refinanced for low rates where it's been able to, and we continue to watch that going forward.
Question, Kyle.
Sir.
I might interrupt. Talking about paying off debt soon and the ability to take on more debt, what about extending the term and allowing more cash flow to take care of additional obligations? And how does that play into the bond sales rates and that sort of thing?
In this environment, because the rates on this existing debt are so low, that would be a cost to you to do that. And so what we would rather see you do, and the LGC is also going to frown upon that in North Carolina, but what we'd rather see you do is keep those existing rates, because they are so favorable, pay off that existing principal, and then where we need to think about maybe the term or the structure a little bit on the margin of the new debt, think about maybe some creative
Really
ways.
referring to the new debt coming on, is it advisable to extend that term out?
I think given, two things there, given your kind of growth cycle right now,
Right.
and given the magnitude of needs that you of a county have at least thought about and identified, we like the idea of keeping within that roughly 20-year repayment cycle. I
I
think
don't disagree, I just want to have that discussion.
Yeah. And the LGC also will, that's going to be their expectation in North Carolina. And so we'll just give you a couple different pages here talking about those couple debt ratios, try to do it in a visual, graphical kind of way here. First ratio is what we call debt service to budget, or debt service versus expenditures. This is basically how many pennies out of every dollar in the budget are going to make a debt service payment. What we've done in this graph is layer together your existing debt and what a $200 million referendum would look like if borrowed over 4 sales. When we do this, we make certain assumptions about when those dollars will be borrowed. We make assumptions about the underlying interest rates for those future bond issues. We've assumed a 5% borrowing rate for those financings in the future. We're much below that in the current market. We always like to err on the more prudent and conservative side. And so if you just visually look at that graph, our policy as a county is to have that ratio not go above 20%. That's that red line right there. It's a red line on purpose. With that $200 million bond referendum, you get to about 14% and some change. And so looking at it visually, relative to that ratio, $200 million referendum is okay relative to this particular policy. So we'll flip the page as we talked about kind of doing barbells here. So that was a $200 million. This page number 6 is a $260 million referendum. Again, just to give you a range of things. If you just, again, look at it visually, there is a very small difference. There is a difference, but that sort of stack of bars there gets a little bit closer to 15% in the out years, which still is below your policies. You're in compliance with your policy if you do those things. And again, trying to use some conservative assumptions. So relative to that policy, either a $200 or $260 million referendum fits within that particular policy for the county. So we flip the page and just like we've done in the past, like to take a look at not just what are we doing in Johnston County, but how do we compare to highly rated peer local governments across the state. North Carolina would benefit from a lot of very highly rated local governments. And so it's a credit really to the state and the way that you as local government officials run things. And so what this is showing is that same ratio, debt service to expenditures, that peer median, which is in that dark blue bar, so that's basically the median and the average of all those other local governments that are AAA rated. It's about 14%. We right now are at about 11.8. Again, if we were to layer on either 200 or 260, we'd get to about that median in and around that range. So that tells us, that tells the rating agencies that we would be on par in line with other highly rated, meaning AAA counties in North Carolina. Next couple of pages, we'll look at that debt to assessed value. That was the other critical policy that we mentioned at the outset. This policy, we've got a 4%, so you see that red line, top of the page there. That's one that we could also even probably bring in a little bit as a policy for the county. You've grown so much that that 4% could really even be tightened up a little bit. But what you see there is at a $200 million referendum, you end up at about maybe 1.6, 1.8% relative to that policy, so you're fine at that $200 million amount. You do the same thing with the $260 million amount. You get a little bit closer to 2%, but still well below the policy. And so then you flip the page, and this is where you see a little bit of variation in terms of other either AAA or highly rated local governments in North Carolina. We right now are at about 1.2%. The Forsyths, the Chathams, et cetera, you see them in the higher ones, maybe getting close to 2. And so this one, we'd be on the higher end of it, but again, all these things are taken not by themselves, but in the context of overall finances and debt management. So relatively speaking, in good shape for this policy. Page 11, in this particular graph, this is that payout ratio, so that we're projecting forward now and saying, all right, if we do all these various things with either $200 or $260 million, and we layer them on in such a way that we're repaying that debt over a 20-year time period, do we push out or push onto the future generations the repayment of that debt? In this particular graph, we want our bars to be above the red line, so it's a little different than the prior graphs. But basically the answer is you're in good shape relative to these policies. Our policy says that we want to have no less than 50% of the principal repaid in the first 10 years. And what those bars are showing us is we hover in the 60+% range over that entire 10-year projection period. So again, we're checking another box as it relates to policy compliance and being able to demonstrate that to the rating agencies. And so just to kind of wrap up a little bit here, when we do layer on these variety of projects, the projections are that you'll remain in compliance with those policies. That sends all the right signals to the rating agencies, to the LGC, et cetera. Given that you are a growing local government in terms of tax base and the economy, we like the idea of continuing to pay off the debt on a reasonable but relatively rapid pace that helps to free up the capacity for the future. And again, with the 22 referendum and a proposed or potential 24 referendum, we see you continuing to comply with those policies. It's important to note here that this presentation focuses on, again, the debt compliance, the policies, et cetera. That is one slice of the pie, if you will, in terms of the overall picture. What you'll be doing with your budget this year, your budgets in the future years, is also critically important, and maybe arguably more so than some of these ratios, making sure that you can demonstrate to the rating agencies and the credit markets that the budget will continue to be structurally balanced, that you'll be in compliance with your fund balance policies into the future. I think we've all talked about and seen that the inflationary environment that we've lived in the last 3 or 4 years has meant that there's greater pressure on the operating costs than there has been for the last 15 or 20 years. So just before we close, I should mention that in terms of hopefully that abates and subsides, et cetera. But again, part of our job sometimes to make sure that we're painting that whole picture. And so I just wanted to mention there that the presentation itself, very focused on the debt side of the equation, but obviously doing all the things that you've done with the fund balance policies and the projections, having structurally balanced budgets will be just as important, if not more important, as you think about maintaining the AAAs and taking on these various projects. So then in terms of next steps, we're here this evening, which we appreciate. To the extent the county would like to go forward with a referendum in the fall of 2024, we'd really need to know that and be able to communicate that, start taking some actions no later than June 3rd. So we've coordinated with your bond counsel. There's a number of steps that would need to be taken in terms of on the legal side, is also communicating some of that to the LGC. And so to the extent that that is the will of the board to move forward with the referendum, we'd need to, I say we collectively with your excellent staff, need to know that by June 3rd so we can kind of get those wheels in motion. From there, you'd obviously move through the 25 budget process. What we would be thinking about is during the summer and fall, continuing to work on updating some of the capital planning, again, circling back to some of those CIP concepts that we've talked about during the summer and fall, so we can bring those back to the board for your consideration and approval, potentially in the fall, subject to your collective blessing. With that, if referendum went forward, that would happen on the 5th of November, Election Day, obviously, with federal elections as well, and then likely look to issue the next round of general obligation bonds early in the next calendar year, but a lot of things to get figured out between now and then. So with that, Mr. Chair, happy to answer any questions or provide any additional context that would be helpful.
All right, any questions for Kyle?
I do, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned inflation earlier. We've seen a tremendous uptick in our property values here in the county. We've got a revaluation coming up. With that new baseline of assessment, do you think we need to address any of these guidelines we've put in place, like the debt to the assessment, that type of thing?
I do. I think it'd be a great idea. You've come so far so fast in terms of the size of that underlying tax base.
I mean, 4% is 4%, but you're talking about a lot of dollars difference.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Yep. Yeah, so I think we could bring that policy more in line with where you are now as a AAA and the size of the tax base now. The policy was probably set 10-plus years ago.
Yeah.
So just kind of a good refresh would be
Right.
in order.
I think it's important that we don't automatically go down the road that because of inflation, because of our property values have gone up, that's just one half
Yeah.
of what we do to determine what the new tax rate could be. That does not automatically mean there will be an increase in taxes. So I just want to make sure we don't jump to that conclusion.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, Kyle, thank you. As always, I think we incrementally move forward as we get through budget time. We get a few questions asked. I'm sure there'll be others that we'll pass on to you through staff as they come up. But thank you again, and thank you for Davenport being a trusted partner and there with us through the decades to get us to that AAA rating and keeping us there.
We'll keep doing it. Really appreciate it.
Great job as always.
Thank you.
It is a good what-if exercise.
Yes. All right, next item is farmland preservation update from our soil and water conservation folks, and Greg Walker is here to present to us. Mr. Walker, good to see you again.
Good evening.
It says on the agenda, farmland preservation update. I think it might be better, what I'm after today is, because I'm talking about conservation easements and farmland protection, it seems like it's what I'm talking about a lot when I come here lately. Just another opportunity, I think, to try to find a way to fund them. I'd like to talk to you tonight real quickly about another opportunity that's before us. I've been encouraged to apply. The USDA is offering another opportunity that we did apply for last year. We were not successful, but they encouraged to apply again. And also the North Carolina Department of Agriculture also encourages to apply again. It seems like a dedicated fund pool is the way that we're looking to move into the future. And I really would love to have one dedicated to us here. So what I wanted to briefly describe is this Regional Conservation Partnership Program, RCPP for short. And just as it suggests, the title suggests, it's about partners coming together to achieve common goals. And so what I'm trying to outline here real briefly is a USDA, NCDA, and a Johnston County landowner partnership to try to achieve some of our conservation easement objectives. The program is due, the grant application, I should say, is due July 2. I'm out front a little bit, but it takes a little time to prepare this thing. Mr. Brazel was, so I'm here trying to lay a little bit of groundwork, a little bit of support. So it needs a letter of support, and also that letter which would also include your financial support as well. My table below suggests that $600,000 annual, I guess that rollover fund we've been talking about for a while, is a rule of thumb. But if you look at it closely, it's about a 13-to-1 leverage. So it's a good deal if we can pull it off, I think, for the county. My chart is a 5-year project. RCPP is a 5-year deal. The clock starts ticking when you get a contract in hand. If you will take a note of the fact that I'm loaded in the first 3 years, but with easements, it takes once you get funds in place, it takes about a year and a half to close. So we want to be closed out by the end of that 5-year period. So that's why that chart looks as it does. So typically, what I try to pull off doing the easements is to talk to landowners about trying to find the value of that easement, trying to find at least a 75% target for achieving funds with a 25% landowner donation. So that chart reflects that model. I will pause right there. If I can answer any questions, be happy to do so. Is this,
Any questions?
I have one, Greg.
Yeah.
There's two sides of this coin, coming up with the money, but what about the prospects of farmers being willing to participate in it?
Well, right now, our interest level is growing.
Oh, it is?
This past year, I submitted 8 new ones, this past funding cycle. Now, what I'll be happy if I get 3/4 of those funded.
Right.
I'll be a little bit depressed if I get 1 or 2 funded.
Right.
So it's going to come down to funds, because we know that the feds and the state both were overrun with applications, so the competition is fierce.
Right.
So this is an effort to try to
Right.
find me some funds just for us.
Mr. Walker, for the public that's watching, where's the best way for them to find out about this, where you fund it, and if they have any interest in potentially asking for a offer for their land?
Well, let me try to answer this way. We try to do a public workshop each year, and we got one, I guess, planned for next month, where we try to talk about what easements are, just describing what they are, what they aren't. Try to give the public a general flavor for what it is, and then we invite them to come to see us and visit it with us to try to talk about details that it might pertain to their particular parcel or their particular interest. And it's worked pretty well, so we get a lot of phone calls.
So what's a good way for them to contact you, just for
Just
the public to know?
call us and look at our website. We've got a lot of things online.
Okay.
There's a lot of NCDA, USDA reps out there. Their websites are visited too. And hopefully they connect back to us too.
Okay. And just for the public, will you tell me your website? The website address?
That was a tough question. Just Johnston County Soil and Water Conservation District.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
All right, any other questions, comments? All right, there's nothing you need for us to do?
Not tonight. We'll
Tonight.
talk about a letter a little bit later
Okay.
on again.
Bottom line is, you're looking at commitment of 600,000, 3 years.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. All right, next up, we have an update on land protection in Johnston County, and we have Leanne Hammerbacher with Triangle Land Conservancy here to present us this update.
Great. Good evening. It's great to be here with you today. Let's see, a little shorter than Greg. I'm Leanne Hammerbacher with Triangle Land Conservancy. Few new faces, but hopefully you all have heard about us. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on TLC and our work to date. Specifically, over the past 2 years, Johnston County has allocated about $1.5 million, just shy of that, to our land protection work. And so tonight, I've really come to give you an update on that work and to thank you all for that prior commitment of funds. Next slide here. So a little bit more about us. We actually just had our 40th anniversary, so we're going on 41 years in existence. We were started in 1983. We are a nonprofit land trust that serves 6 counties across the Triangle, including Johnston County. We own and operate 8 public nature preserves. One of those that's located partially in Johnston County is actually a farm and nature preserve. That's our Williamson Preserve that has about 16 miles of trail and 5 active farmers on site. In addition to that, we run and operate the Flower Hill Nature Preserve, which is up on Moccasin Creek in northeast Johnston County, and the rhododendrons and mountain laurel might still be out, so if you didn't get out there a few weeks ago, I highly encourage you to visit this time of year. It's a 40-acre preserve, but it's one of the rarest natural communities in all of North Carolina. In total, TLC just hit 25,000 acres conserved across our 6-county Triangle region, and about 5,000 of that are in Johnston County. So this is a map here of Johnston County projects we've worked on. The green dots are projects we've completed over our tenure. The yellow stars are projects that were funded with your first cycle and commitment of funds 2 years ago. And the white stars are projects that we have under contract or in the pipeline. And with your previously committed funding, will close by the end of the year or early winter at the latest. So as I said, there's about 5,000 acres that have been protected in Johnston County by Triangle Land Conservancy. Several of those have been in partnership with Soil and Water and with Open Space, so that's been great. One of our largest acquisitions is down in the Low Grounds priority area, and that was 1,100 acres we worked on in partnership with the state of North Carolina. We purchased that about 4 years ago and transferred that to the state about a year and a half ago. So you can see our 2 key priority areas, which are Marks Creek and then the Neuse River Low Grounds, but we also have a focus on the main streams and tributaries throughout the county, with a particular focus on supporting efforts along the Neuse, Buffalo Creek, and the Little River. So again, y'all have committed about $1.45 million, and that has helped us complete 5 total projects so far. I'm going to run through those real quick. This graph here that's in your packet just shows what we have closed to date and what we anticipate to close within the next year. Again, your commitment of funds has helped us leverage funds from 2 key funding sources. That includes North Carolina Land and Water Trust Fund, as well as the North Carolina Agricultural Development and Farmland Preservation Trust Fund. And that roughly $1.5 million has enabled us to secure over $12 million in grants from both those sources. You'll notice that most of the projects that are below the red line, which are the projects we anticipate closing the end of this year, fall into that North Carolina Land and Water Fund category. The state had pretty much triple the allocation in that fund the last 2 years, so your commitment has gone a long way in us being able to leverage those funds, but they also have a huge backlog of projects, so they are about a year behind in deploying those funds, and that is why we're still working to close so many of those. But a note, county government commitment does get you a much higher priority and points in that ranking system, so your allocation of funds over the last 2 years is the main reason a lot of these projects have received funding from the state. So just to walk through these completed projects to date, the first one I'll touch on is the Stevenson Farm. This is in the Willow Spring, Cleveland area. It's kind of a two-part project. We purchased 17 acres along Middle Creek that could eventually provide public access to the creek there. TLC actually owns an additional 60 acres near there. So in the long run, there could be a nice opportunity for public access along Middle Creek. In addition to that, we worked with the landowners, the Delbridges, on a working lands easement on their 50-acre farm. This was a purchase easement that again had a contribution of about $200,000 from y'all that leveraged over $700,000 in funds from the state. This is a picture here of Lola Delbridge. We're excited to wrap this one up. She is 95, and I think growing up on the farm really did a lot of good for her health, but she no longer lives on the farm, and her niece, who lives on the farm now and helps operate and work the farm, is shown next to her with a big smile when she committed to permanently protecting it. Another project y'all helped fund that we closed last December, we had a really busy December you'll pick up on, was a 97-acre farm on the Little River. This was a purchase conservation easement. It had about half of that was prime farmland and the remainder was a working forest. It has about 2 miles on the Little River. And again, Johnston County funds contributed to this project, helped us leverage funds from the state, the North Carolina Agricultural Development and Farmland Preservation Trust Fund. 2 final projects I'll touch on that were closed were actually donations to TLC. One, a donation of land outright, and the second, a donation of a conservation easement. But part of the funding y'all supported us with 2 years ago included funds for transaction costs on donated easements, and so we were able to take county funds and really leverage these donations from private landowners. So the first is 30 acres along Buffalo Creek. It's a beautiful swamp, but also has about 20 acres of upland hardwood forest. That's some of the prettiest I've seen in the county. You know, big old oaks, 100+ years old. So incredible donation by the family and contribution by the county enabled us to leverage the county funds. It costs us, even if it's a donation, a fair amount in survey, due diligence, and legal to do these projects. So thank you for making those funds available, and it enables us to really secure these donations from landowners. The second was a conservation easement on a working lands farm. This is close to 200 acres, right on the Neuse River. It's actually directly across the river from our Williamson and Riverwalk tracks. And again, this was a donation of easement. It's all 196 acres or prime farmland. Most of this is cultivated. I think this is actually a grass swale shown on this picture that Soil and Water helped with on this farm. But again, TLC was able to accept the donation of the easement and hold it with the transaction costs being covered by the county on this. So those are the projects we've closed to date. The remaining projects will use the remainder of funds you dedicated the past 2 years. The first one is fee simple acquisition along Middle Creek again in the Willow Spring area. Beautiful swamp and habitat, and the county again will be covering the transaction costs on that. Next is an assemblage of 10 separate easements along Buffalo Creek that total close to 400 acres. This is one of those projects that we secured Land and Water Trust Fund money 4 from the state, but because of their delays, it's taken us a lot longer to close this project than expected. But we do anticipate it and have it under contract to close by the end of the year. So again, thank you for your contribution and support. That really helped elevate our ranking and level in the statewide process. Another project, again, similar one, State Land and Water Trust Fund is located in Selma along the Neuse River. This is close to 93 acres. County funding will help complete this $1.6 million project. We anticipate closing by March of this year. This is a beautiful tract. It has about 2 miles of frontage along the Neuse, and I think will be a key connector in the long run for the Mountains to Sea Trail and Greenway corridor along the Neuse. And lastly, in that first allocation of funds, another 100 acres we're working on up in the Little River. This is a combination of an easement and an acquisition that, again, county funding support helped us leverage a state land and water grant. So it's close to 100 acres and ties into some of the mitigation work and other projects we've done along the Little River to date.
Leanne, could you go back one?
Yeah.
And I'm going to look for Adrian for a nod. So on that property, is that just downstream from the Wilson Mills High School site?
It's on the opposite side.
Right.
It's, planned to potentially be a selling park after development. Obviously, it'll take a little while to get the plans and everything so they can get funding approved. They do plan for it to be a park.
And we are working to figure out how to connect the two.
And run the Mountain Sea Trail, East Coast Greenway through that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think this site could also provide a nice parking area
Okay.
for the trail in the long run.
Okay, great.
Yes.
All right, we'll jump back to you thanking us then. How about that?
So thank you. Your funding commitment over the last 2 years has enabled all of these projects to happen. And I don't think any of them could have probably happened without it. So we really appreciate your commitment to open space, to working lands protection, and I think it's needed now more than ever in the county. These are all the projects we have under contract and that your money has been dedicated to. We did submit a nonprofit grant ask for next fiscal year. We have an additional 1,000 acres that are in the pipeline that we could protect if that funding's committed as well. But in general, we just wanted to give you an update where we are on funds to point and see if you had any questions.
All right. Any questions, comments?
Comments, some of this really hits close to home. When I was a boy, I kept a fishing rod in an old car on the farm, and whenever I passed Hatcher's Bridge, I'd stop and fish every time. Same fish, same river. I'm glad to see it preserved.
Any other comments? I will say, during the land use plan, as we were developing that in public comments, I think it was upwards of 70% of the folks who responded to our survey were interested and thought that open space and farmland preservation was very important. And I will say, between your presentation and Mr. Walker's from Soil and Water Conservation, when we can turn $1 into $6 or $10, it's a good deal for Johnston County. And again, thank you to TLC and all the work y'all have done and are doing and bringing us these projects and make it easy for us. And I know we have somebody now in Adrian O'Neill who you can work with and make things happen and connect dots. So thank you, and thank to Adrian and Austin for the work they do in our parks and greenways and open space programs. So.
Definitely. It's been a great partnership with both Adrian and Austin, and there's no way we would have been able to do these projects without their support as well. So, and I think, we have a list of landowners who are interested. So if the funding is there, both easements and acquisitions, I think we can make it happen, especially if we have a little local money to, again, leverage those state and federal dollars.
I love that. And that was going to be my question again. For the public, if they want to get on that list, how do they find out more about it?
Sure. They can go to our website, www.triangleland.org, or you can just Google Triangle Land Conservancy, and you'll find my information on there, Leanne Hammerlager. It's actually at the end of this slide, too. So
Perfect.
you're welcome to reach out directly to me.
And I love the stories. Any of those you can bring, I think, are great.
Yeah, I think this actually may be a shot of your
is.
fishing home there.
The secret's out now, Dan. It's over now.
I've drug my canoe over that log.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thing.
All right, next we have manager reports and comments. All right, no reports from the manager. Board reports and comments, and I'll start. It's a nice mix now. We've got people moved around, so Commissioner Brazel.
As always, I think we need to, every time we get an opportunity, always give praise to our employees. They do a wonderful job keeping this county moving. Our staff, keeping us organized. Just, we're very fortunate to have such a good staff and employees.
Speaking of that, I think, Rick, well, actually, we've had two functions. Do you want to mention the function in Wilmington that you attended and our award-winning 911?
Brett?
Yeah, yeah, come on.
Yes, thank you for that, Mr. Brazel. And yes, recently there's been some press releases about it. You know, Brett Renfro was the 911 Communications Director of the Year in North Carolina. And then also yesterday was the first ever EMS Hall of Fame banquet at the community college, and it was a great job. Mr. Godwin was there and actually spoke there at the beginning, but that was a great program and meant a lot to those families, especially there were quite a few that aren't with us anymore. So,
All right. Thank you. All right. Commissioner, Vice Chairman Harris?
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll second what our county manager said about the EMS Hall of Fame. They inducted 7 people into the first class, and 5 are no longer with us. 2 were there, and there was a lot of family members. It was a well-attended function, and it was interesting to hear the you could almost parallel the history of our county with the history of the EMS service and the fire service, how it's come from very primitive beginnings to where we are now. And that was an interesting thing, how they started out on a shoestring, literally. And now, of course, the type of service that we have when we call 911 is far and away above that. And for Leanne's sake, the first Sunday in May when I was a kid, Flower Hill had a Flower Sunday, they called it, and everybody and his neighbor went up there. That was back in the 50s and 60s.
I will add, I know I skipped my thought, but I will add that EMS in Johnston County started as Civil Defense Rescue Squad, and it was based in Smithfield. And it was basically one old truck that ran the whole county. And there wasn't a lot of saving lives going on. It was more body recovery than anything else. But they had a boat and an old van that they would take off, and they'd go wherever they needed to go. And that's how it all started. It's been really an amazing evolution. And I will chime in on our 911 communications director. I've known Mr. Renfro for 30-some years or longer, and he is absolutely the epitome of public service and a person who's dedicated to the people of this county. He's put his whole life and his whole career right here to serve in Johnston County, and we're just really proud of him to get that recognition on a statewide, nationwide, national level. That was really impressive, and so really appreciative of all his work and dedication to the people here in the county. Thank you.
The Kenley EMS said their first ambulance was an old hearse donated by a Grizzard Funeral Home. Mm-hmm. And the first lady they hauled in it was a little bit apprehensive about being hauled around in a hearse.
There's a little bit of conflict of interest there, wasn't there?
All right, after meeting 2, Commissioner Stovall.
I have nothing to report tonight, Mr. Chairman.
All right, and Commissioner Stevens.
I'm good.
All right, I did have one thing, and I forgot, well, I know what it was. Now, we have been talking about making an application to name the bridge near Tony's house on Highway 70 Business in honor of him. And I did want to say that a special thank you to the Johnston County Firefighters Association, who has agreed to pick up whatever difference amongst the donations from the board, where they have agreed to step forward and make up whatever that difference is. So a special thank you to them. And I know Tony played a big role for a long time in the fire service in Johnston County. So thank them for that. With that, I believe we have a need for a motion to go into closed session, and I will say there will be no action taken after we come out of closed session. So,
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move the board go into closed session for the purpose of consulting with an attorney employed by the board in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A4, and to discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the area pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A4.
Second.
all right, we have a motion and a second to go into closed session for the reasons stated. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. After a few minutes clear of the boardroom, we will enter closed session.